Hello, my name is Ann Sermons Gillis, and I'm happy to be here with you today for a project for the Theosophical Order of Service. Our goal is to archive some of our great Theosophists in the present so that Theosophists in the future can share of their wisdom. Today I have a guest from me who lives in New York City with his wife Mary, and Mary may be assisting some this afternoon if I'm unclear about my questions. And he is the former Vice President of the Theosophical Society of America for 3 years. He is also the author of 2 books, The Masters of Wisdom and The Secret Gateway. He was the president of the New York City Lodge twice. He is also a national and international lecturer for the Theosophical Society. His website is edwardabdill.com, and I will put that below so that you can go to his website. And he has a lot of information there. For example, you can get links to some of his other talks, and you can find out about his books. And I will put that below. And so I'd like to welcome you today. This is Ed Abdill. Ed, welcome.
Thank you. Welcome. Thank you for everybody.
Yeah, I'm so glad to have you here. And I wonder if you could just tell us, where were you born, Ed?
I was born in Mount Holly, New Jersey. My parents lived with my paternal grandmother. So when I was taken out of the hospital, I was taken to Burlington, New Jersey, where I grew up until after high school. And then I went to New York to study at the Latin American Institute to learn, yeah.
All right, that's neat. I did a paper on Latin American politics back many years ago in the 60s, which enabled me to go take a trip to the United Nations through my church. But anyway, that's an interesting coincidence. So when you were you born into a family that was religious at all? Did they have any kind of spiritual background that they taught you?
No, my father at best was an agnostic. My mother was what I call a lukewarm Protestant. She sort of believed in a God and life after death, but she didn't go to church for a long, long time. When she did finally go, it was mainly for social reasons and to get away from my father for a while.
Okay, so you didn't have any boxes that you were put into spiritually.
I was not. That was one of the good things my parents did not do. They did not constrain me. They allowed me free thought. I was taken to a Protestant church, independent church, by my maternal grandmother when I was only 4 years old. And I went with her every Sunday. And when I was old enough, I went to every service there was. I was devoutly religious. I was a definite believer in the Bible. And I thought, since I had a difficult relationship with my father, God was my only father. He loved me, he understood me, my father did not. But I learned later that my father did love me, but he just couldn't express it. And he came from a broken home, as did my mother, so I don't blame them. But it caused, my relationship with my father caused enormous psychological difficulties, which I have mostly overcome. Maybe there's only a 0.5% left. But it did a lot of damage. But now, through meditation and the Theosophical philosophy, I am a totally changed person.
Oh, that's wonderful. That reminds me, aren't you a priest in the Liberal Catholic Church?
Yes, I'm a priest in the Liberal Catholic Church, and a rather unusual one, because I do not believe in a creator God. I don't think I'm praying to somebody who responds in King James English. I am convinced in what the Mahatma K.H. wrote to A.P. Sinnett about God and about creation. He wrote about creation. Go on thinking that man and nature were created, and you will be up against hard facts forever. But once realize that neither man nor nature were created any more than this iceberg now before me, and all will become clear. Well, of course, no one created the iceberg. It's a state of water within the sea. That is the theosophical idea of creation. There isn't any creation, there is an evolutionary process in nature, and we, as well as all that is, are just simply temporary aspects and states of that one reality.
Thank you. So would you tell us a little bit about your spiritual search? I think you've been headed that way, but how did you maybe find Theosophy? And once you were in this Protestant church, I mean, where did you go? How did you open up?
Well, I always had an open-minded view, even though I was a devout Christian and was totally convinced Jesus was the Son of God. However, when I was studying Spanish at the Latin American Institute, all the teachers, they weren't professors, all the teachers were native speakers. And I was in a conversation class with a woman from Peru. And she said for the final exam, she wanted something more serious than what we were talking about. She really meant, I'm bored to tears with all your talk. I want something more interesting. So I had done an essay in high school on comparative religion. And while I was convinced Christianity was the true religion, I simply presented the beliefs of each of the religions that I chose to talk about. So I thought, well, I'll redo that in Spanish in the class. And I did. And the next day, she brought me a pamphlet translated from English called ¿Qué es Teosofía? What is Theosophy? Well, I read it. Well, I'd heard about reincarnation, though I didn't believe that at the time. I didn't know anything about karma. And the thing that caught me was at the very last sentence of the pamphlet, it said, in English, translated to Spanish, it said, if you doubt these things, there's a vast literature. Read and decide for yourself. That caught me. So I asked her if she could bring me books, preferably in English, about Theosophy. And she did the next day. It was a very interesting book. And I found out she was a member of the Spanish-speaking lodge of the New York Theosophical Society. Now, I was in a class of only about 6 people. She was in an organization of no more than 30 or 35 people in a city of over 8 million people. It was not chance, it was destiny. That changed my life.
Wow, and you became the president of the New York City Lodge. So that is really, that's amazing. So from there, where did you go with that? So it changed your life, and how did that affect your life? Where did you study and move, and what did you do?
As I said, I was a devout Christian at the time, and I decided after reading a lot about Theosophy and going to public meetings, I thought, I accept most of these ideas. I think I'll join. If I join, I will have to drop the idea that Jesus is the one and only Son of God. I remember when I thought about that, and I thought, if God is truth and I disregard truth, I disregard God. That was the end of it. I never prayed again. I meditated.
I mean, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, by the way, I want to say something about the liberal Catholic Church. While I don't believe in a creator God, I know from my experience that there is a power in the sacraments. I'll just tell you one story because there's many I could tell, but we won't take time up with more than one. One year, Christmas and New Year fell on a Sunday. Well, I sent Christmas notices out and said, we will have the usual midnight mass 24 December. But on New Year's Day, Sunday, New Year's Day, we will not have a mass in the morning. I knew that very few people, more than 2 probably, would come, and we wouldn't get home until 3 a.m. having danced Scottish dancing all New Year's Eve. So I said, we will not have the mass, but we will have solemn benediction and the healing service, which is really Holy Unction. Holy Unction was originally a healing service. The oil used in Holy Unction is oleum infermorum, oil for the sick. But in the Middle Ages, the priests were selling it, and the bishops forbade them to sell it and said, now you can only use it if someone is dying, and then it became last rites. But it's really a healing service. So we had the healing service and solemn benediction. Now in the healing service, you sing the Veni Creator and do various things, and then toward the end, you call people forward to be anointed with the oleum infermorum. And you anoint them on the forehead, top of the head, throat, and nape of the neck. Lay hands on the head and say, Christ, the Son of God, pour down his healing power upon thee and enfold thee in the light of his love. Now, I often felt energy, in fact, mostly felt some energy going in. People would report to me they felt it. Well, you could say it was my imagination, it was what I expected. But on that day, it was so powerful, I felt the energy going through me and out through my fingers into the room. The subdeacon practically ran up to me after the service, and he said, I saw the energy going out from your fingers. Mary, who was playing the organ, came over and said, the energy filled the whole room. I don't know why that happened. I don't know why it was so powerful that day. I may have been a better conduit. It may have been angelic participation. It may have been the people in the congregation. Whatever it was, it never happened that strong before or after.
That's an amazing story. So that was a sacrament. I actually had a church myself, and I used lead beaters, the science of the sacraments, when I was founding that church. So I think there is power in the sacraments and the garments. You know, there's certain energy flow with the garments that you get, and that's a great story. Thank you so much. Are there any living teachers that well, they may not be alive now, but living teachers that influenced you, whether they were theosophical or other teachers?
Yes, I had three wonderful mentors. First, Dora Kuntz, who, as you know, and maybe many in your audience know, was born clairvoyant. She was a very practical woman. She did not, if you asked her what color your aura was or what the future was, she would probably call you an idiot and walk away. But if you needed help, she was right there to help you. She founded what became Therapeutic Touch, and she had a way in a meditation class, which she ran every Wednesday before our members meeting. She had a way of touching you inwardly, and not with words. It was something she did, and you sort of got a sense of your own inner self. And so I can never repay the debt of gratitude for learning to meditate from Dora. And her husband, Fritz, was very interested in science and theosophy. And without Fritz and all his knowledge and his lectures that I attended, I would not have been able to write The Secret Gateway, which is a summary of the Theosophical philosophy. So I learned the metaphysics from Fritz. I learned meditation from Dora. And also Emily Sellen was a mentor. She was a very prominent member of the society, I think once vice president of the Theosophical Society in America. And they lived in New York. So those people were definitely mentors for me.
You said three. Was there someone else?
Yeah, those are the three.
Those are the three: Dora, Fritz, and Emily.
Oh, okay. And so one of the cornerstones, and you'll have to excuse me, audience, I do have a cold, and so I have a little coughing and sniffling here. But one of the cornerstones for the Theosophical Society is the Theosophical Order of Service. And I'm wondering what your relationship is with the Theosophical Order of Service. Did you have projects when you were the president of the New York Lodge, or how have you participated in TOS?
Well, we donate to the Theosophical Order of Service every year, but I am not a member of it. I certainly approve of what it does.
If you are a Theosophist, you're a member of the Theosophical Order of Service. Everyone, you're automatically a member if you're if you're at this, if you're in the society, you're a member. You may not be active.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So you didn't have any projects
No.
necessarily?
No,
Well,
I didn't do anything within the TOS, no.
So you didn't have any project, the New York City Lodge never took on TOS projects?
No, but the Red Bank Theosophical Society in New Jersey, which meets in Middletown, New Jersey, every Thursday night, they do the Theosophical Order of Service healing service, and I participate in that. And after the service, there's usually a video or a talk. I've done many for them, and they sometimes choose one from TSA, or they have another speaker.
So you have actually participated in the TOS by going to the healing service,
Yeah.
and also speaking at TOS events.
Yeah.
Is that correct? So service in general, if you're moving outside of the idea of the TOS, Blavatsky said that Theosophy itself is altruism. Do you have anything to say on that, or what would make that true? How would Theosophy be altruism?
Yes, anyone living an altruistic life is not only a theosophist in spirit, but also comes under the influence of the Mahatmas, the masters of wisdom, the adepts, the brothers. They were called the brothers in the early days of the society, just brothers. And they have said in their letters that anyone who moves along the lines of altruism is automatically within the sphere of their influence. And I am quite sure of that. I can tell you just one story which is evidence for it. Many years ago, I gave a week program at our national headquarters in Wheaton, Illinois, on the Mahatma letters. And the last day, I decided not to give a talk, but to have questions and comments. So on the Friday before the last day, which was Saturday morning, I said, I'm not going to lecture tomorrow. I want you to bring questions and comments. And I knew some people wouldn't want to raise their hands. So I said, you can write your questions on paper without a name, and we'll put them in a basket, and I'll pull them out and we'll discuss them. I arrived 9 a.m. on Saturday morning, and I said, any questions? None. Any written questions? None. I had an hour and 15 minutes. Fortunately, I was a seasoned speaker, so I just got very quiet, and I thought about what I wanted to say about our brothers. It poured through me so strongly that I was a witness as well as a speaker. And John Aljo, who was president of the society then, came up to me afterward, and he said, we're both Scorpios. He said, Ed, I'm going to do something very un-Scorpio-like. I said, what is that, John? He said, I'm going to hug you for that. And he did. Years later, I talked to Dora at our Theosophical camp in the Northeast, Pumpkin Hollow, and I told her about that. And Dora, if you were saying something foolish, she'd just walk away from you. She wouldn't tolerate nonsense. She sat there with the most beautiful face, smiling and shaking her head in the affirmative. She knew exactly what had happened that day. I was in the sphere of the influence of our brothers, and I think anyone can do that if their heart is in the right place.
Thank you. So do you think that extends to, from what you're saying, to non-theosophical members, for example, Martin Luther King?
Non-theosophical members, what?
Does that extend to non-theosophical members such as Martin Luther King?
Oh, yes, I think it does. They will not know anything about the brothers, the Mahatmas, and that doesn't matter. The adepts don't care whether you know anything about them or not. They can spot someone who is useful, and they influence them. They never force anyone to do anything. And you'll see that in the Mahatma letters, that's true. But they influence anyone who comes along the lines of their work, which is helping humanity. Certainly Martin Luther King tried to do his best to help humanity. And many others who are not Theosophists, they're Baptists, they're Jews, they're whatever. if they're working along the lines that the adepts want, which is helping humanity, then they will influence those individuals, whether they know it or not.
Well, have you ever had ask the masters for information or help, like a personal relationship, or has it been more that it's poured through you, or has there been ever been any kind of you asking something?
No, I never ask anything. The thing is, they are very clear that they will not help anyone with their personal problems. They make it very, very clear. They only work with people who are working along the lines of their work. In the early days of the society, people kept asking Blavatsky will you please ask Master to help me with my job or my marriage or something? And she said, I will not take such questions to the brothers. She would not do it, and they will not respond that way. So when people claim they're getting personal information from the adepts, they are deluded.
Well, thank you for that clarification. I wonder, for example, would you say, if you were going to speak, would you say, Masters, would you speak through me, or is that still too much of a personal request?
I would never do anything like that. Never. No. I try in my meditations, I try first to quiet my mind and then to become aware of my own inner self. And there's a shift in consciousness. And for a flash, there's no me, there's no time, there is only eternity. A Zen master called it a fleeting forever. Perfect description.
I love that, a fleeting forever.
Yeah, and I feel close to the adepts, but in an impersonal way. I don't think they are thinking of me, but I try to get in rapport with them, and that opens up a floodgate. It's as though my meditation is a stream, and when I think of them, it's the Missouri River.
Thank you. I'm going to switch the conversation a little bit and ask you about attending lodge meetings, attending federation meetings, and even attending convention meetings in Wheaton at TS, and wondered if they have played an influence in your life, and if so, what have they brought to your life?
Yes, I've attended all of those types of meetings. I was a regular attender every Wednesday at the New York Theosophical Society. I've been to all of our camps, and I've been to, of course, to headquarters many times. And frequently I get an insight from someone who is saying something. I remember once in New York, a speaker was giving what I consider to be one of the most idiotic talks I ever heard in my whole life. And there are precedents. And in the middle of it, she quoted Mrs. Besant. And she said, Mrs. Besant said that the Dugpas, that is the evil adepts, the selfish Mahatmas, they are not interested in us at all. But if they see that we're doing something for the Mahatmas or for our brothers, they are interested in us. And the first thing they do is send discouragement. Oh, well, nobody's doing the work but me, I'm going to quit, So they send discouragement. That hit me so hard. And whenever I would feel discouraged, I would remember that, and I would get rid of the discouragement.
So do you believe that's true, or is that was that just a helpful idea for you?
What was that?
Do you believe that's true, or was that just a helpful idea for you?
Oh, no, I believe it's quite true. It makes good sense. Leadbeater even wrote about the Dugpas, the Mahatmas of the left-hand path. And he said, they're not interested in us. They're only interested in us if we're doing something that it interferes with what they want. They'll treat you to dinner, they will be friendly with you, no problem, but don't ever cross them, because then they will attack you. Now, I met only one person in my whole life that I thought was truly on the way to being a black magician. It was at New York University. It was a casual acquaintance, and we were talking for a while. He wasn't even in any of my classes. And after a bit, he said, would you like to have a cup of coffee? I said, oh, okay, fine. He lived very nearby. So I went. And he said, would you like a drink? And I said, no, I don't drink. And besides that, I'm a vegetarian. He said, oh, are you afraid of your karma? I said, what do you know about karma? He said, oh, quite a bit. He said, he said, my entire family has been in magic all along. Leadbeater said that was common with black magicians. It ran in the families. And he said, I had a friend who moved out to California and he did something I did not like. And I did something and he drove off a cliff. I said, oh, you don't think you really caused that, do you? Oh, yes, I do. I said, well, didn't that upset you that you thought you killed this man? No, I didn't want him around. The coldest eyes I ever saw in my life. And then he said, do you know Professor Trell at New York University? My blood ran cold. I did know her. When I was in Rome taking courses that I had points transferred to NYU, she was one of the professors there. And one of my friends happened to be a young Jewish woman, and she said she was going to shul. I didn't know what that was at the time. I said, what is shul? It's the synagogue. I said, oh, I'd like to go because I like to see the various religious services. She said, fine, we'll have to get you a yarmulke. Professor Trell will probably have some black cloth. Well, she did, and she cut out a yarmulke for me. And somebody asked her, Professor Trell, what is your religion? She said, well, I was born a Jew, I became an atheist, and now I'm a pagan. And I thought at the time it was just because she taught classics. And when I mentioned this to the man I was talking to, he said, oh no, he said she wasn't just interested in it. And I said, well, maybe she was just interested because she was curious about paganism. He said, oh no, not in the position I have seen her in. Well, then I thought, I will never, ever talk to this man again. And I left.
So what do you mean, the position? I'm not quite clear on the story.
Well, I said, well, maybe Professor Trell was just interested in the pagan rites and black magic and so forth because she was interested in, ancient Rome and Greece and all that. He said, oh, no, it wasn't just interest because she was in it. She was in the position I saw her in. She was in it personally, not just curious.
She was in black magic? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, she was into rituals of black magic, and he had seen her in them.
Okay, because paganism, is a very broad category. It can be the earth religions, it can be a lot of different things.
Of course.
And so, so you really felt I'm going to use a 70s term, a bad vibe from this guy.
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, he's the only one I thought was a true black magician, well on the way. And I know Professor Trell said she was a pagan. She didn't say what she meant by pagan. Apparently, she meant she was not only interested in paganism as a scholar, but she was into an aspect of it that was Blavatsky called black magic.
I see. I'm going to switch again a little bit. I know that I've seen you do classes and you talk about meditation. Could you just elaborate a little bit about meditation and the importance that you see for meditation on the spiritual journey?
Yes. By the way, I've done meditation workshops and I have handouts that I do give out then. If anyone wants them, they can email me. I have my email on my webpage, but it's eabdill@nyc.rr.com. I'll send you the handouts. Now, meditation I began when I joined the society. And at first, you just get a feeling of peace. If your intent is simply to be at one with the eternal, by whatever name you call it, then I can guarantee if you persist in daily meditation with that intent in mind, there will come a time where there is a shift in consciousness and you are the inner self. The personality, the body is still there, but it's diffuse. It's on the periphery. You are that inner self, and you never forget it. You know that you inhere in eternity. And when you come back to brain consciousness, all your problems are still there. It doesn't get rid of them. But by this daily practice, gradually you are transformed. I feel from the time I came to New York in 1959, I have lived no less than 3 lives. And Mary would not have married me in the first 2. I was in the military. I was in the Army, first with the counterintelligence in Fort Meade, Maryland, and then with the staff judge advocate, where the general courts-martial were tried in Korea after the Korean War, before the Vietnam War. And I didn't have a beard then, but when I met Mary, I did. And she said she didn't want to see me without a beard.
I like beards too. How long have you been married?
48 years.
48 years. That's wonderful. That's
We're
amazing.
married on December 8, 1973. The Liberal Catholic Church celebrates various lady festivals, the Nativity of Our Lady and a few others, but not the Immaculate Conception. So I didn't know about that. We were actually married on Immaculate Conception Day.
Oh, that's amazing.
And a lot of people think the Immaculate Conception means Jesus. No, it's Mary. She allegedly was born without sin, the Immaculate Conception.
Well, I had the wrong idea about that myself, so thank you for that. If you were to meet a person who was just joining the Theosophical Society, and they ask you if you could explain Theosophy or give the principles that you think have touched your life and that are the most important principles, what would they be? What would you tell this person?
When I first joined the society, I could tell you all about Theosophy. Now I can't tell you anything.
I love that.
It's the more you learn, the more you realize how much you do not know. I would give them the objectives of the society. The first objective, as you know, is to form a nucleus of the universal brotherhood of humanity without distinction of any kind. That was the founding purpose. It is still the primary focus and purpose of the Theosophical Society, and many members have forgotten it. They feel very brotherly, they believe in brotherhood, but brotherhood is a life lived, not something taught. It's something we need to do. We need to realize, and this meditation, by the way, brings that feeling of unity with all life. One gets a sense of the unity of the whole, and then you can no longer have your prejudices against various human beings. It wipes them out. So I would tell the people the objectives of the society, and I would say anyone in sympathy with those objectives can join. So we have Jews, Christians, Buddhists, Hindus, Muslims, people who don't belong to any religion, and even at least one atheist at our headquarters in Wheaton, Illinois. He comes regularly and he gives, when we do the prayers of the religions at the beginning of a convention, he does one that is a humanist prayer. And he starts by saying, this is not a prayer to any God, it is a prayer to our own inner self. It is the most beautiful of all the prayers that are said that evening.
Well, thank you. So it sounds like that what you're saying for the beginner is that they probably would move from a place of getting more information about Theosophy to a space of being transformed by Theosophy.
Yes, and I would recommend, not because I wrote it, but I would recommend The Secret Gateway because it's the only book so far that is written in contemporary language that any person, whether they ever heard of Theosophy or not, can understand. So I would give them that. Of course, I would also recommend The Key to Theosophy by Blavatsky. Until I wrote the book, that was what I recommended, The Key to Theosophy. And I would say, well, what should I read? And then I would think, well, The Key to Theosophy, that was written in the 19th century. You know, we need something more modern. So then I thought I had, you know, I was asked a long time before I wrote it to write a book. And I said, I'm a better speaker than a writer. Well, I found out that's not true. My editor said, I was an excellent speaker. I realized a writer, but I realized my problem was editing. I'm a very slow editor. So that was the problem. And I realized when I finally decided to do the book, I just realized I had it already in all the talks I'd given. I just had to edit them, organize them, and there was the book.
Well, what was the push? What was the thing that made you decide? Because a lot of people have said, well, I'm going to write a book someday, and they don't. But what was, do you know what the push was that made you just sit down and do it?
Yeah, well, Dan Doolan, a friend of mine, a member of the TS, he did the graphics for the books for Quest, and he emailed me once and said, why? He said, I'm so tired of doing the graphics for these silly books. Why don't we have a book by Ed Abdill? So I wrote back and I said, I think you put the last straw on the camel's back. I'll do it. So I did.
Okay. Well, what about the other book that you wrote?
The other one, I wrote The Secret Gateway, and it was published by Quest. And I take no royalties. I gave all the royalties to the society. The second book, I was asked by Mitch Horowitz, who was then editor-in-chief and vice president of Tarcher Penguin, to write a book on the Masters. My first reaction was, no, I've said all I have to say about them in The Secret Gateway, 10 whole pages about them. And then I thought there's such nonsense out there about Mahatmas, you know, they live forever, they live in bodies of light, they help you with a personal problem. All of it nonsense. So I thought maybe if I wrote that book, I could clear up some of the foolishness that is out there about masters. And I did. And about a fourth of that book is direct quotes from the Mahatma letters. I let them speak for themselves.
Well, even since we don't have the book here, and a lot of people do ask questions about the Mahatmas, even if we've read about them, could you just give us a brief description about the Mahatmas and their relationship to the Theosophical Society, to the world? We mentioned it before, but maybe just a little bit more information on that.
Yeah. Well, the Mahatmas that we know about by the pen name, not the real names, they never gave the real name, pen name of Kuthumi Lao Singh and Maurya, those two were interested in getting some of their wisdom into the West. So they asked permission of their brotherhood to do it. And none of them were very interested in it, and none of them really thought it would be very successful, but they reluctantly gave their permission for K.H. Kuthumi and his colleague and brother Maurya to start the experiment. They searched the world over to find someone who they thought could do it. And they settled on Helena Petrovna Blavatsky as the best available, not perfect by any means, but they contacted her, Maurya contacted her in London during the Great Exposition around 1850 or so. The Great Exposition was like a World's Fair. Hyde Park was covered over with a glass dome, and there were so many people in Hyde Park, it was like Times Square at New Year's Eve, just thousands of people from all over the world. Now, Blavatsky claims she met Maurya in Hyde Park. It is likely, according to Joy Mills, and I believe what Joy Mills says is probably true, it is likely that that Maurya told her to meet him the next day in Marsgate, which is a suburb of London. And in Marsgate, in the early 1800s, someone had discovered a shell grotto. No one knew who created it. It was all sorts of fascinating shells on the wall, something that looked like some kind of an altar, but it was not anything like Western religions or even Hinduism or Buddhism. And it was a quiet place. So probably Maurya met her in the stone grotto where he could actually talk to her without thousands of people around him. And so he laid out what they asked her to do. He told her, you can help us help humanity, lift some of the veil of ignorance from humanity. If you decide to do it, you will get nothing personal. You won't get any money. Your health is poor. It will only get worse. People will betray you. People will attack you verbally. It won't be a pleasant life. But if you want to do it, you can help. And she said she would. And it all came true. She didn't, at her death, she didn't have enough money to pay for her funeral. She was quite ill most of her life. And people did betray her so badly at one point. She was upset for 2 solid weeks. And the adepts said, we can't use her now. She's too emotionally upset. So she did what they asked. And the society has had an impact on the world. For such a small organization, it really has had an impact in various ways. Now, you asked me something and I've gone off on a tangent. What else did you want to know?
Well, basically, you were just telling, I wanted you just to speak on the Mahatmas.
Oh, yeah.
And the,
Well, they insist that they are 100% human. They live for hundreds of years, according to Blavatsky, but she said not one of them lives 1,000 years. Their body eventually dies, but they know how to keep it alive for hundreds of years. They know what to eat, what not to eat. They live in Tibet, at least these 2 masters. There are many others that we don't know about, but Blavatsky said others exist. So they're 100% human, and their primary work is to help humanity as a whole, not individuals. So I think that's what I have to say about them, unless there are any questions.
Well, you said that they're 100% human, but it sounds like the calling that they have is way beyond the agenda that normal humans would have.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I understand that we use only a part of our brain. We don't use the whole of our brain. I should imagine the adepts use the whole brain. They are fully developed human beings with all of the human potential available to them. We are human beings in the making. We haven't quite made it yet. We side more with our animal nature than we do to the spiritual side of our nature.
So they're like super beings.
They're what?
They're like super beings?
They're like superhuman beings, but not supernatural.
Yeah,
They said some people say the age of miracles is over. We say it never began. They don't believe in miracles. They believe in natural principles, natural laws. Science. They say, in fact, science is their best ally. And today it is the hardest science of all, physics, that has validated a few of their principles, especially as to the nature of matter. In the 1800s, physicists believed that matter consisted of atoms with a nucleus, of a hard nucleus like billiard balls bouncing around in the universe, and that the nucleus could not be split. Blavatsky taught the cornerstone of the occult sciences rests upon the elusive nature of matter and the infinite divisibility of the atom. They thought she was a silly old Russian woman with no science education, and she turned out to be right. Now they laugh on the other side of their face.
Yeah, if you listen to the interview on the TS site by Rupert Sheldrake, I think he says that she was way ahead of her time. And if I'm not, I think that Einstein kept a book. He had The Secret Doctrine that he read and referred to. And
yes, his niece and a friend said he kept a copy of The Secret Doctrine on his desk. Now, he was not a member of the society,
right.
But he admired the scientific portion of The Secret Doctrine, which is about 1/4 of The Secret Doctrine. And he recommended it to his scientific friends. So he, while not a member, he was leaning toward the Theosophical philosophy. In fact, many of his quotes are Theosophical in their nature. One of the most amazing is he said that matter is those areas of space where the field is intense. There is no room in the new science for both matter and the field, for the field is the only reality. Fields are non-material in character. That's a 100% theosophical idea. Out of the non-material, the material emerges. And that's exactly what Einstein said.
Powerful, Ed. That's powerful. You've been a long-term theosophist. And I wonder if during your life you've had this experience that people say is a calling. So you had a calling to do something for humanity, for your friends. Have you had a calling toward anything?
Well, I know that priests say they have a calling, and maybe they do, I don't know. I just think that my dharma, my purpose in life, was revealed in coming into the Theosophical movement.
Mm.
So I do think that I had a calling in that sense. In fact, I'm giving a talk for the Fresno, California Lodge, I think the 30th maybe of April, on Dharma, D-H-A-R-M-A, which means your purpose in life. So, and I begin by saying, why was I born to certain parents? Why was I born here? Is there anything I should do in this life? And that Dharma can perhaps shed light on that and give you some sense that there is a purpose to your life.
So what it sounds like it's more, okay, go on.
Yeah, one quick story. We had a friend who, without going into all the details, died of a disease similar to what Lou Gehrig's disease was. Anyway, we were very fond of her and of her sister. Her name was Roz, the sister was Elaine. And when Roz visited New York to see if any doctor here had a better prognosis, which they didn't, she visited me. And I didn't know what she knew about life after death or theosophy or anything. She certainly didn't know much about theosophy. So I said to her at one point, Roz, we humans can get through anything, even death. And I let her, I wasn't going to say anything more. And she got very excited. And she said, I had a near-death experience when I was 11 years old. I was in a dentist chair. The dentist put a mask over my face to administer gas, and it malfunctioned, and I was asphyxiated. I found myself outside of my body, looking at my body in the chair. People who had died said, come with us. And I said, no, I cannot come with you because I have things I must do. She didn't know what it was, but she knew that the purpose of her life had not been completed. That was Dharma. And she said, then I looked at my body in the chair and I thought, how do I get back in? Head first or feet first? And then she was back in the body. I said, Roz, you're not afraid of death anymore, are you? She said, no.
That's a great story. I think a lot of people that have near-death experiences feel like they have something they need to come back for,
Yeah.
even if they're not clear about what that is. Well, it's been wonderful talking to you. I wonder if you have anything about your life or about spirituality or about theosophy that we haven't covered that you would like to share, or any last bit of advice?
Well, theosophy is not the truth. The literature and the speakers point toward the truth. My mentor Fritz Kunz used to say, language was invented to conceal our thought.
Oh.
And Blavatsky said the secret doctrine was written to appeal to the higher faculties, not to take it literally, because you would not get the truth from the secret doctrine. So the theosophical ideas, if you ponder them, not believe them, please don't just believe them. Don't believe anything. St. Paul, whom the adepts call the Christian adept, said faith is the evidence of things unseen, not blind belief in anybody or anything. The evidence of things unseen. I have lots of evidence. Mary and I are both a wee bit psychic and occasionally have flashes of clairvoyance. And I can tell you, we have evidence of things unseen. So I would say to a newcomer, don't just believe, but ponder the ideas. See if you can put them in the back of your mind and just let them sit there and ponder them. Don't analyze them. Don't intellectualize them. Just ponder them. And eventually you may get a flash of insight. And that flash of insight may change your life. So Theosophy is a path. It is not a doctrine. It has become a doctrine to many people. And the adepts and Blavatsky both warn against dogmatism. They say if you set up a creed, Theosophy will crystallize and die. You have to have the open mind always and to seek further from anywhere you have arrived. To keep seeking, keep going further, further, further. There's more, there's more. Don't think you ever arrived. You haven't, okay?
That is beautiful. Thank you so much. Yes, a living theology, one that is alive and present and here and now. And I just can't thank you enough for this interview, Ed. I know that everyone's going to enjoy it, and I look forward to seeing you in the future. Thank you so much.